Welcome back, warriors.
Yay!
Woohoo!
Oh.
We are so stoked to be sharing with all of our warrior community that it is our 1-year anniversary special.
Woohoo! I wish we planned the song for this.
This is the song. It's whatever comes out of one of our mouths is the song.
That's true. But my brain is now like, oh my God, what rhymes with special? Because I want to sing the second line.
It doesn't have to rhyme.
Wow.
Come on.
We made it for a year.
Okay, well, that doesn't rhyme with special. We can all agree. But I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. We are, I think, in a state of shock, excitement.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know how I feel. I feel so many things thinking about the fact that it's been a whole year of this.
Yeah. Like, first of all, the year went pretty quickly.
Yeah. What is time anymore? We can all agree on that, I think.
But also, like, I just feel like there's been so much growth and evolution in our process in the last year. And I feel proud because when we started, we had no idea what we were going to do. Like, we could have stopped after 3 episodes.
Yeah. Legit. No clue. No clue. Like, just remembering back to the early days, it was like, I remember when I got my microphone and that felt strange and also really exciting. But as anxiety warriors, I was really, really nervous about it. We talked about it like at length ahead of time, but not in the detail that I feel like most anxiety warriors, perfectionists, overthinkers would have talked about it. It was like, right? It's like we thought hard and long, but at the same time, it was only like 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah. We were like, we should do a podcast. Okay, let's do it. And then we just did it.
Right. Yeah. Which is, yeah, I think it just goes to that is a testament to our growth in many ways, just as warriors, right?
Mm-hmm. I think we could have overthought it. We could have and obsessed about it being perfect, and then we would have never done it, or it would have never lived up to our expectations if we planned too much.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so real. I feel that.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there are so many other instances in my life where that was the exact playbook. It was either I thought so hard about it that I just said, nope, not going to happen. Let's just sweep that back under the rug.
Right.
Or oh my gosh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Oh my. All right. Yeah. So for this 1-year anniversary special, we're going to be kind of like in a little bit of reflection mode.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be almost like lightning rounding each other, but not lightning round, not like the whole, like make a sound of an animal or share your favorite, whatever.
I don't know. Maybe we should do that now.
Oh, maybe we should. Let's throwing it back to our very first episode.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we'll surprise each other with one random lightning round at the end.
That sounds good.
We're gonna kind of just share our memories about the process, and ask each other a couple of questions about some of the growth that you mentioned that we've experienced over the year. Some of the things that have made, I know, me feel really excited and proud and curious about how the journey is unfolded, and then curious in a different way about how it will continue to evolve and unfold in the months and maybe, dare I say, years to come.
Yeah. Ooh, I like it.
Oh, I just got a little sparkle, like a little twinkle.
It gave me butterflies in a good way when you said that.
Right? Well, that's good.
Yeah. It was like, ooh, like an excitement, like a glittery, like when you said sparkle, I knew what you meant. Like, it's like a glimmer. It's like a,
it's like the tiny little flame, right? That's still burning bright, but like the idea about thinking about it in the future.
Right.
It's like in Kanto. It's like the Madrigal family.
Oh,
we're keeping the flame ablaze.
That's right. It might change. It might need to, evolve and grow, but the flame is there.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love this metaphor.
I know. Great
job.
We
won't start singing. Yeah. We won't start singing. Oh boy. All right.
So I just want to give a spoiler alert. Margot and I have had anxiety podcasting.
What? I know.
So I think it's like a perfect time to talk about our podcast anxiety on our anniversary.
Yeah. Right. That's why we Well, we started podcasting because we had anxiety. And so, of course, podcasting gave us anxiety.
Yeah. So, okay. So I want to know, because like, I think, so here's the thing. My memory works in this really weird way where like, I can like remember like one time I was walking in Queens, walking down a street, talking to you on the phone. And I like remember the conversation. And this was like in 2018. Right. But how we developed the podcast for me is less vivid. So I want to hear like from you, what do you remember that led us to start podcasting?
Okay. I feel like my mind works in a very similar way. But
Shocker!
I do, yeah, more surprises, warriors. That Abby and I think alike, at least in many ways. Okay, so one of the things I remember is when we had kicked off, we had done a live together on Instagram.
Yeah.
And that started in January. No, the live was in, I believe, December of 2020. 2020? Yeah.
Yeah.
December of 2020.
Yeah.
And afterward, we were texting or talking, and you had mentioned that you wanted to start supporting your friends on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, dude, that's so crazy that you're saying that, because I was thinking the same thing. And so we launched our hashtag featured_female.
Yeah.
And then the two of us went live to announce this hashtag, this little mini movement that we wanted to begin back in the new year of 2021. And so we went live again, announced that we were going to be doing this, invited our followers on Instagram to join us by simply highlighting a person in their life. It was a woman, right? So highlighting a female in their life, or someone that they, even if it was someone that they'd never met, a business owner, an author, like whoever, someone that inspired them and us, and shared about them, including their picture, their bio, or whatever, on a Friday between January and March.
Yes.
And so that happened, and like people jumped on board and they loved the idea. They were excited by it. And so it, of course, made you and I excited, because it was like, we had this idea and we saw it through and we were really proud of it. And I don't remember, I feel like you had said in a joking, passing manner, like in the months even before that, like, I love talking to you and we connect on so many things, and especially like all of our feelings and mental health stuff and anxiety, and like, why don't we just podcast together? And I remember just laughing with you, like, that's such a funny idea. But then once we did the live and everything kind of happened with our featured_female movement or mini movement, I feel like that ended and we were like, what now? Like, what next? Right?
Yes.
Like, we should do something else. And then I feel like I don't know if it was you or me. I almost feel like I texted you back and I was like, all right, you know what? I'm game. I know I've been laughing about this since you brought it up, but like, we should podcast together. And I think I have a great name for us. And then I told you and you were like, yes, let's go. Let's do it. And then like things kind of unfolded after that. That's my memory of why we started podcasting together.
Okay. That is exactly my memory. That is it. That is 100%. That is when I was thinking about it, like, you just spoke my like stream of thought. Like,
well, that's good, because that's how I speak.
Yeah. The only thing that like I couldn't remember, right? And I even had it. I was like, I can't remember how we decided to talk about anxiety, like how we were like, oh, we're going to do anxiety. But I remembered you came up with the name, like, and that I loved it. But I was like, I couldn't remember that one piece. Like, how did we decide that part?
I don't know. I thought it was because, and I don't know, maybe I'm going to be like implanting wrong memories now, like trying to come up with it.
It's a big gap. So you can just fill it in. You can just tell me anything and my mind will be like, oh yeah.
You're like, yeah, that sounds right. It's like what I kind of just mentioned a moment ago. To me, it just, the crux of so much of our conversation and so much of our conversations and with other people in our community, as kids yoga teachers, as people in the wellness field, yourself as a coach and me as an author, like even sort of these separate fields that all kind of combine into trying to be of service, trying to help others. And I feel like that's both that's something that both of us hold true to be part of who we are, right?
Yeah.
Is trying to be a people of service. And so I want to say that maybe when we got going with our little mini movement, because it filled us up to sort of like have a community and build community in that way, that maybe we were like, hey, we need lots of support. And so maybe we could be a source of support, which can then also support us. Like, I truly don't remember the specifics as to why it was anxiety either, other than the fact that you and I have always spent so much time in our friendship talking about our anxiety.
Right.
I don't know.
Right. That's like the missing piece for me, but it's like, duh, of course that's what we would talk about. Like, but like, I can't remember the like, okay, yeah, let's podcast. What are we going to podcast about? Let's just podcast about being anxiety warriors. Okay. Like,
I genuinely don't know. Yeah. That's so funny that like we both have the exact same narrative, but then it was like, but how and why was it this? Yeah. That piece is missing for me too.
Yeah. But it was like the true piece. I mean, that's like, duh. Of course we would talk about it. I just don't remember ever uncovering that, of course. Like that, like, oh yeah.
Well, we must have.
Yeah, we had to say, what are we going to talk about? Because on our lives, we talked about everything.
Yeah. But maybe it's because we realized that so much of our conversation always fell under that umbrella though, right? It always fell under the umbrella because like so many emotions go into being anxious.
Right.
So many other ways of, so many behaviors, so many other emotions and feelings go into sort of the umbrella of anxiety. So man, so crazy that we don't remember, but but
everything else featured female, like
same memory otherwise.
Yes.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask you the same question, but you kind of followed up already.
I mean, it was like the time I told the story about being a control enthusiast and you're like, you are saying everything. Like the whole time you were saying that, I was like, that's it. That is exactly what I remember. Yeah.
Yeah. And here we are a year later.
Yeah.
Still talking about anxiety.
Woohoo.
So much has remained the same in that we're still your dorky, hopefully lovable, silly hostesses with the mostesses. And also that we've been able to share the stories of so many wonderful warriors that have been on with us and connect with so many warriors digitally through Instagram or through hearing from them on the apps, through Anchor and all that stuff. So like, okay, let's get into like, what were some of the uncertainties that came up for you when we decided to start podcasting?
Yeah. Oh my God. So, I mean, there was like so many, right? So many uncertainties. Because like putting your voice out there and sharing your stories is vulnerable. Right. And so there's the like uncertainty. I mean, first, there's like the biggest one is anyone going to listen or care? Right. Like maybe people listen and they're like, oh, it's just two girls talking about their anxiety, like.
Nice.
Yeah.
Bringing that Valley girl accent in. Oh my God. Just two girls talking about anxiety.
How many stories do you actually have about anxiety?
Like 100 a day, Karen.
Like, yeah. So there is that piece, right? Will people listen? Also, will people want to be guests after we ask some friends to hop on? Like, will we have other people that are willing to join us? Right? There's like that uncertainty.
Yeah.
And then, there's like the uncertainty of like, how much time does this take? Because the reality is when I listen to podcasts, I never thought about the time and effort that goes into it.
Nope.
And the other part of that is a lot of the podcasts I listened to were super mainstream. So they had an editing team. They had like scheduling and getting the guests, they had like, promotion for it and everything. And so I never thought of any of that when you and I started.
I definitely didn't think of it when I was like, you were right. Let's do this. And then 3 weeks later we did.
I know. Good thing neither one of us thought of that.
That's true.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, all the things like that, if we had known, who knows how we would have gotten in our own way.
Yeah.
Right.
We would have stifled ourselves. I'm sure of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. But the other like uncertainty with me, and we've never talked about this, right? Was like, that I have some feelings about the wellness world.
Mm-hmm.
It has greatly helped me, but also it has not. And being in collaboration with someone, even if you really like them, you never know what's going to come from that. Right. And so there was the uncertainty of like, is this going to like bring Margot and I closer together? Are we going to have different opinions and thoughts? And is this going to pull us apart? Right. Like there was that uncertainty for me because I didn't want, I mean, it always felt natural collaborating with you, but I didn't want it to lead to like some other relationships I had in the wellness world that didn't turn out well.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Wow. I definitely, that's one that I didn't really have in the beginning. Right. And I don't now either, but I do know like, and we just had like a really long phone chat recently where it was just, and like, I feel like I was like, it's called friendship chat. Like we're going to have a friendship chat and we're not going to talk about the podcast. And we were really good about setting that boundary and just having a conversation, just Margot and Abby. And I feel like that's something that similar to what you're saying, that I didn't have that sort of anxiety going into it all. But as time went on, it felt like the crux of, or what became normalized in our everyday or very regular conversation was talking about the podcast. I will say we talk about plenty of other things throughout, like just being still, I still felt like we're more than just podcast co-founders and co-hosts. Like we're friends still.
Yes.
But it felt like, okay, much of our conversation is being geared in this one direction. And is that going to change the nature of our friendship? And will we potentially start to lose that from having it all be business and like no play kind of thing, which I'm really grateful that for the most part, I don't feel like it's changed our friendship at all.
No, I mean, for me, I feel like it's made it stronger. Like,
yes,
I feel really connected to you. And then like, our listeners don't know that like, you and I Zoom and like every week there's like 30 minutes of just like laughing and chatting, which I don't think you and I would have had if we weren't podcasting.
No, that's very true. Yeah. So it's been a great source of connection for sure.
What about you? Like what uncertainties came up for you?
I mean, it was all the things you said. And I guess on top of that, it was just like, I don't know everything, not even close. And one of my biggest uncertainties and still remains is I don't want to sound like I'm trying to sound smarter than, or more interesting than, or like I know more than other people, because I certainly do not, like not even a little bit. So I hope that it's always clear to all of our listeners that we are just here to sort of share our perspective, share our personal experience, our stories as a means of connecting, as a means of validating each other, and hopefully making warrior listeners out there feel less alone in their anxiety journeys.
Yeah.
And so I always hope that is what's coming across, because that has been one of my anxieties throughout since the beginning and still now, is that like, I would just hate for anyone out there to be like, ugh, Margot or Abby or these people are behaving as if, or talking as if they have all the answers, that they know things. And like, I don't think anyone could listen to us for 10 minutes and feel like that. But it still worries me. It's like, who do these people think they are? I think is kind of where my brain goes sometimes, which that just goes back to my imposter syndrome. Yeah. And just my feeling less than, and am I worthy of even a single listener? Are we worthy of listeners? Like, and it's those kinds of feelings that I feel like still crop up for me, that I have to actively beat back, practice being curious about, and moving through. So I think all the things you said, and then I would add that one.
I love this for two reasons. So first of all, when you were saying that, this thought that has popped up in my head before, and I think I shared it with you once or twice, was sometimes when we have guests and I hear their anxiety stories, I feel like an imposter with my anxiety. like I have lived with anxiety my entire life. It has not been a fun trip, right? No. The journey has been a lot of learning and a lot of suffering. But sometimes like, I'm like, when I hear someone else, right, I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing talking about anxiety? Should I be talking about anxiety? It's like very similar to you. But I can also really, really, really relate to like, even though I don't want to be someone that has all the answers, I also have this anxiety of not sounding smart, like you were just saying, right? So it's like, I agree with you. I don't want to be someone that's like, I know everything and I'm going to tell you what's great for everyone, right? It's not that. But I still want to sound smart, because if I'm not smart, then who am I? Right? Like, then people might not like me, or, like it's so, it just gets so wound up. And so it's like in that imposter stuff. So along with like the uncertainties and not feeling smart enough, right? Or not wanting to give, unsolicited advice that, only works for you or whatever, like, do you have other anxieties around podcasting?
Well, I mean, when you brought up about like not knowing how much work was going to go into the podcast, like that was really up there for me too.
Yeah.
Just like like you had said, so you painted the picture so perfectly. It was like all of these podcasts that we listened to for the past many years or several years or however long are all like professionally done, right? Meaning that there's more than just a 2-woman show behind the curtain, behind the scenes. And so just, it doesn't give me anxiety that it's a lot of work, right? I enjoy the work. The work is fulfilling. The work is energizing. For the most part, it's tiring too, like for sure, right? And we can acknowledge that. But it's all love when it comes to how much stuff it is. But at the same time, it's like where the anxiety creeps up is just like, but we want to make sure that that work is being done to the best of our ability, that work is producing a product that's hopefully interesting and can be loved by the people that are hopefully listening and tuning in all over the place. So some of the anxiety, I think, is just about like, once all that work is done, what's the payoff, right? And sometimes the payoff is just going to be like how we feel about the product we put out, how we feel about the service, the episode, the quality of the episode, and all of that. But yeah, what about you?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's some of it. It's like when we first started listening to ourselves, I was like, this is causing anxious feelings. Like, to listen to yourself is a interesting mindfulness practice, right? To say the least. To hear like, language tics that come out, and, when I interrupt, I am like mortified when I hear that. I leave it in, but I'm still practicing my impulsivity, like my emotional regulation, right? But then there was also like, especially in the beginning, there was like a deep like discomfort or insecurity around like not wanting to overshare, not wanting to, like, as an anxiety warrior and also someone with ADHD, sometimes we like meet someone for the first time and we say everything. It's like, let me tell you my whole life story, right? And like Brene Brown says people have to earn trust, and that's always stuck with me. So for me, there was like anxiety around, wanting to share enough to paint a story, but not oversharing so it becomes boring, or oversharing so it becomes like triggering, or oversharing and someone else like, know that I'm talking about them and them getting upset, right? So like there's this balance of being able to tell a story where it felt right for me and for anyone listening. And also just like anxiety around like sometimes rambling, right? Sometimes feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm talking too much, right? And it's really funny because so one part of my memory of us starting to podcast was basically we wanted to launch in May because it's like mental health month. And we started hyping it on social media. And then I think it was Adam that was like, hey, listen, you need to put something out sooner.
Yeah, it totally was.
And we were like, wait, we can't hype it for a month?
Right.
Yeah. So you and I got on Zoom and we recorded like a 7-minute thing that I was supposed to edit. Right. And I had some like understanding of editing because Dan had helped me edit my Insight Timer course, right? But aside from that, I've never edited stuff in my life. And part of editing is not just like cutting out stuff, it's making sure that the story flows, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not just like, oh, someone had a loud sneeze, let me edit that out. Or, oh, someone got interrupted, their like dog came into the space, let me edit that out. It's like making sure it still flows.
Yeah.
And our 7-minute chat at the beginning about why we were doing what we were doing was a ton of rambling. And I was like, oh my God, how am I going to edit our stuff? I have no idea how to do this. I know how to cut and paste, but I don't know how to like form a story.
Yeah.
So that was like part of it that then rippled into when we started having like guests and stuff. Like I was very attached to everything needs to be underneath an hour because that's what my brain can handle. My brain can handle an hour of talking, like of listening to people talk. And then I'm like, I'm done. Right. So that like manifested into like, oh my gosh, I have to like spend hours editing and it's never going to be perfect. And now I've let all that go. But that was like, for me, it was like, you know, how do you do the right amount of editing to keep the story? And the idea of it, but without it like being a bunch of people just rambling.
Yeah. No, that makes sense to me. And like listening to you say it all, it's like, yeah, no, I could never do it. I couldn't do the edit. I mean, like, not just because me and technology are foes, but I think that would be very, very challenging for me. So I'm super grateful that you're the one in charge of that.
I actually really like it now. I like choose to do that over other stuff.
Right. And I'm sure everyone who's listened to our show for a while, like can appreciate how much work. Well, if you don't now, warriors, now you're listening, please appreciate how much thought and effort and process goes into not just recording the episode, that Abby's in charge of that recording, but also making sure that the episode is edited, streamlined, cleaned up, adding the music and all the things. And oh my gosh, like I see your anxiety, and I'm also so grateful that you're doing that, because those things would give me, I mean, we wouldn't have a podcast. So there's that.
This ties into what I wanted to ask you about, which was like, you know, how we've played into each other's strengths, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, editing has become something super easy, right? Like there was that one time with a guest, I had a coughing attack and nobody knows that because I edited it out, right? But like all of that was like super duper easy. I enjoy it. I enjoy like listening over and over to our podcast for, you know, I don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not like, oh God, this is horrible. Right.
Yeah.
Stop talking, Abby and Margot. But this plays into, how we've played on each other's strengths, because I don't think we would have a social media page or any listeners if it wasn't for you.
Thanks. I mean, so like to me, when you and I first started doing this, we divvied up some of the responsibility before knowing how much more stuff, right, would need to happen. It was like, okay, you're going to be in charge of X, I'm going to be in charge of Y. And that was all we had. It was like you, Zoom and edit, me, social media, content creation, promotion, like engagement, that kind of thing. And like, I feel like we were both just like, all right, cool. Like now off to the races. Right. And then like over time, we're like, oh no, those aren't just the two things that we need to do to run a great podcast, or any kind of podcast, even if it's not great.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, no, we also have to, have content. What are we going to talk about? Right. And so it's like the back end planning. And I feel like, you know, you are always the one that creates we go back and forth about topics. And so that feels kind of like a shared, you know, responsibility. And then you write those very clean, streamlined outlines. So then we're good there. And then when we decided that we wanted to have guests, right, and we want to talk to people, and some at first, so like you said, it was just some of our friends in the industry or in general, and then it grew, right, and it was like we learned through our conversation with Anthony, our previous guest, that like there should be one person that kind of leads the charge, and then the other person kind of jumps in with their thoughts and follow-ups and stuff. And we learned pretty quickly when we both started doing we were like, let's go back and forth. Like
Yep.
for this guest, you'll be the lead interviewer and you'll be the dynamic questioner. And for the
Yep.
next guest, we'll trade it off. And then after, I think it was like one person, I feel like maybe two, you were like, I feel really uncomfortable as the lead interviewer. And I was like, I feel really uncomfortable as the dynamic interviewer.
Yes.
And so that kind of naturally, thankfully, because you were brave enough to say that, I think like maybe I would have said it at some point, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe we just would have been uncomfortable for a little while longer before we inevitably figured it out at some point. But
every other guest episode would have been super awkward.
Right. Pretty much. Right. Exactly. So I'm so glad that like we found our comfort zones within the discomfort zone of podcasting. It's like by deciding what feels really good for each of us. And I feel like we've gotten to a place where we each have probably a dozen responsibilities for the podcast every week. And we're able to execute them comfortably.
Yeah.
And while challenging and sometimes tiring, and it's like, oh man, we both have lives and work and other things to think about and family and whatever. But it's like, it still feels like it fits into the day. It fits into the week.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a little bit less anxiety knowing that like I'm doing the things that I'm mostly comfortable with and you're doing the things that you're mostly comfortable with.
Yes. Yes. It is like embedded into a routine now for me.
Yes.
Right. It's like, there's so many parts that go into this. Like, first of all, like I really struggle, even though I love writing outlines, I don't find that like writing, right? Like I know I'm writing, but it's like, it's not like writing for me. And so I struggle with writing and so you know, sometimes we collaborate on titles, or sometimes you offer a number of titles and have me choose, or sometimes you're like, this is the title because it's awesome. And I'm like, yes. But you write the summary, right? Because I would spend probably like 3 days writing it and rewriting it and sending it to all the people that I ask for reassurance if it's good or makes sense or how it needs to be edited, right? And you just do it. Like that is so helpful, right? And like for me, the outlines are super, super easy. You know, for me, the editing, the audio and the videos just feel really, really good. And then the other part with like when we're scheduling guests, you know, it's like, you and I collaborate on that. We made our own Gmail account just for our podcast. And, it was like at the beginning, you know, we always talk with our guests. Like we always have a conversation before we actually interview our guests, because when we ask someone their anxiety story, I mean, that's like a lifelong journey. Right. And so, you know, we want like a snapshot, whatever that is. And so we want to make sure, you know, that the story this person wants to tell, we can condense it into, you know, not more than like a 90-minute episode. Right.
Right.
And we also want to come up with some questions based on what they say. Like we have our go-to questions, like our, you know, for each guest, but then we, you know, cater it to who we're actually speaking to. And that part, like, I think you and I both enjoyed, right? But when you and I realized like I know like the few times I was a lead, like I couldn't pay attention to the podcast, right? Because I was like, okay, I need to do time management, because as the lead, we're kind of paying attention to the time. Right.
Moving the train along,
making sure someone's not talking too much, making sure there's pauses to follow up with questions. You know, there's like, it's like conducting. Yeah. Right. But also as the lead, we have the questions to ask. And for me, like, I remember like with Lauren, our very first guest, and then also with Anthony, each time when I asked the questions, I felt like a robot. I was like, so tell me about your anxiety story. Like it didn't feel authentic.
Wait, are you calling me a robot now?
No, you're amazing. You like listen to what they're saying and you know your questions, but you thread it through in this very organic and natural way, right? Like for me, it did not feel that way. And so I remember like I'd be like, okay, next question. And it was so uncomfortable. And so I just really, I appreciated, when we figured that part out, because you are way better at conducting the show, right? Like you got that. And then for me, the weight is lifted off where I can just listen to the story as like as the audience and be like, wow, this is so cool. So I've really enjoyed how and I'm happy we have different strengths, because otherwise this wouldn't happen. We wouldn't have a podcast if we had the same strengths.
Right. And I just feel like it's, first of all, thank you, lady. I appreciate you appreciating the way I conduct the train or ship or whatever.
It's so good.
Yeah. But I also I struggled so hard with the couple of times that I was the dynamic, because I felt so much more pressure having to come up with the good, interesting follow-ups or reflections after the fact. And so it's not that I have a hard time listening, because I am listening intently to what our guests are saying and their responses to the main questions. But it just felt to me, I felt like, oh my God, now I have to not just be a good listener. I have to be a crazy good listener, because I need to really dissect all the things that they sometimes said a lot in a few minutes. And now you have to come up with a way of continuing the conversation in a way that's interesting, is going to get them to be excited to keep talking. And like that before you get to the next main point or question. And so that's a huge weight lifted off my shoulders, because I really struggled with that. I really did. Like for those, like you said, it was 2 episodes. It was Lauren and then Anthony.
Yeah.
And then we were like, nope, this isn't working for either of us. And so, it was just happened to be kismet that we both found our niche within it, because and I mean, so I do all of the pre-interview phone calls too. And so getting the backstory ahead of time, like you had mentioned before, is very helpful in trying to help our guests to tell a more concise and streamlined story, because as we know, warriors, we all have a million anxieties, some of us since the day we were born. So our anxiety story could be like a freaking novella. And so we can't have that on a podcast that needs to be edited and streamlined. So, I feel like we both have really settled into this sort of yummy place. In this journey. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So one of the things that's helped, I think we're saying, is finding what works best for each of us helps us to feel less anxious in the process.
And communicating. I mean, obviously we knew right away I was going to take on editing and you're taking social media. I was like, I can't do social media. And you're like, I can rock it. Right.
Like that. I love what you said about podcast, you bang out an itinerary or an outline for us in 8 minutes. And I bang out a podcast description in 8 minutes. And it's great. If each of us had to do the opposite, we'd be 3 days in and I'd be still editing down an itinerary for our conversation.
Right. We would have given up. Right. And so just communicating what we feel comfortable with, and figuring out what works for each of us, I think has really just helped.
Yes. So much. Okay. So let's talk about some of the things that have brought us the most joy on the show this past year.
Yeah. So, I mean, so much, right? Here's where the ramble happens. But, I mean, the first thing, I'm going to make it about me. The first thing about this journey is that it just makes me feel better. And it makes me feel like I'm not crazy. And I'm using the word crazy intentionally, because I think that crazy is sometimes used in an insulting way. And I'm not meaning it that way at all. But what I do mean is having anxiety and having the crazy, rapid overthinking thoughts and having physiological responses when someone doesn't text you back, having ridiculous amounts of sweat pouring out of you, makes you feel crazy when other people aren't talking about it. Right. And so for me, just little things, little anxieties, having a hard time making a decision sometimes, right? The fear of committing to something, or going to a restaurant and not knowing where the bathroom is, or having a pain in my calf and instantly thinking that it's a blood clot. Right. Yep. Or even just my attachment system being activated. This is stuff I live with all the time. And it wasn't ever really spoken about. Once in a while, if I was at a restaurant with people, And I was like, hey, like, where's the bathroom? And like, I'd need them to draw a map for me. I can't explain it, but walking to the bathroom causes me anxiety when I don't know where I'm walking to in a restaurant. Right.
Yeah.
So like all these little things were so rarely spoken about, but by connecting with you, by talking with you, and by talking with our guests, it just has made me feel better as a human being, knowing that many of these things are shared experiences. And it doesn't mean that just because I have anxiety finding the bathroom, you will, but you will relate in a similar way with a different thing. Like just knowing it's silly to have discomfort around something that shouldn't be uncomfortable, and yet it is.
Yes.
You know? And the other part, like, is when it's shared, it, for me, it allows me to be lighter and laugh more about the experience. So it is like lightened up my relationship with anxiety, because it often feels heavy and I'm like, oh, please go away. But sometimes it's just funny now. It's like, oh, that pain in my calf, like, anxiety. What do you want to say about it now? Other people have these experiences too, you know?
Right.
Even like obsessive sweating, like in one of our most recent episodes, someone else was like, oh yeah, I found my people. Right.
Yep.
And we find our people by talking about it. But the other joy, aside from like connecting with our guests, which is always a huge joy and brings that shared community, you know, that shared experience. I really appreciate the people we've connected to through Instagram. And although you run the account, there are so many people that I've connected with, you know, through comments, through, you know, whatever it is, that it just feels like a much larger community. And it actually allows me to feel better on Instagram through our Anxiety Warriors podcast page, because we know how I feel about Instagram. But it's like less anxiety producing. And then you know, the other joy, which is like, I think super obvious, is just like our connection, right? Because like we were friends. We, you know, like I remember the first time I met you in 2015, and I was like, I have this thing where like, I sometimes just know like I'm going to be friends with someone. Right. And I was like, okay, Margot and I were going to be friends. Right. I had the same thing with Anthony on a Zoom, like through Zoom, doing it like a coaching course, right? I saw Anthony as a box and I was like, we're going to be friends, right? But like from the moment we met, I knew that you and I were going to be friends, and like our friendship developed slowly, I think in part because we lived far away.
Yeah.
Right.
And it was a work friendship in the beginning. And so sometimes the boundaries, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty bad with boundaries and work friendships and professionalism.
But I have a lot of boundaries around work friendships. And so for me, then I'll speak for me. Like that was a test for me. Yeah.
Right. You know, I mean, the thing is like, even though I valued our friendship and I valued our connection as colleagues and our way of supporting each other in the kids yoga and mindfulness world, there were things like, I never knew how funny you are. Like you are hysterical, right? Like there has been so much more laughter in my life since we started this podcast, and not just on the podcast. Your reels crack me up, right? Like,
well, I'm glad someone out there is laughing.
all the time, always blown away by it. And I also just really value with us, like I have a lot of joy at how easy it is, because we have to make decisions together. We have to trust each other. We have to collaborate. We have to communicate. I mean, there's been times where like you and I maybe didn't agree on the same graphic, which is like something small and stupid, but we have to communicate about that, because if one of us is just like, no, fine, you choose, that could build resentment, right? So we have to like talk things out. And through the entire process, it's just been so easy, which has just made a lot of joy for me, because it really is about connecting at that point. That's how I feel. What about you?
I mean, I literally have nothing to add. I literally have no notes. I just, everything you said is, it was all the same things on my heart. I felt a little emotional when you were talking about all of it, but especially about our connection, our friendship, and also the social media piece, because we're friends, and I know, and you've talked about this extensively now on your social media on the podcast about how deeply social media gives you anxiety. So hearing that the community that's built over on Anxiety Warriors podcast Instagram feed, and that being on the feed brings you joy and laughs and smiles, and the connections you've been able to make through people that follow the account or leave comments or whatever, just really makes my heart soar, because it's like the whole point is why we're podcasting, why we're trying to build community on Instagram, why we're trying to help each other, and hopefully everyone out there listening feel less alone in their anxiety, is because we feel it so much ourselves, right?
Yeah.
We experience all of these things so deeply ourselves all the time. And so like knowing that a small thing that you say or do can help me, and a small thing I say or do can help you, is enough. Yeah. But hopefully we know that if it's helping each other, that it's hopefully out there in the world helping a lot more warriors.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, I felt very like welled up when you said that, because at the end of the day, why we're here is to ultimately be of service.
Yeah.
And even if that means that we're just being of service to ourselves and each other. And I know that sounds really selfish, I suppose, but if we don't have love for ourselves, if we don't take care of ourselves, if we don't have self-compassion, we can't exuberate those things. We can't share and send out those things. So like, I greatly appreciate you saying all of that. Like I said, you said all the same things that I would have shared in my answer. So I really don't have anything to add. I mean, I just feel like I'm beyond grateful for it all. And maybe just all the bravery of everyone that's come on our show so far.
Yeah.
As two people that are not anxiety experts, that are just, teachers and, mindfulness practitioners and people who teach mindfulness to kids and adults or educators, parents, whatever. I think that everyone that's come on our show has shown nothing but exemplary courage and bravery for sharing their stories, for allowing us to be the platform where they talk about something that's so weighty and heavy. And I always feel like whenever you hear us say full body chills, or that we well up or we feel emotional about something, it's because not just because of the fact that someone's bravely sharing their story, but because they're doing it with us.
Yes.
They're offering it as a gift, right? People's stories are gifts, and we're being given that gift. Our platform is being given that gift, which means that people from all over the globe could potentially hear the gift of that story. So I just feel just so excited and grateful for all that's happened and all that hopefully will happen in the coming months, and dare we say years ahead.
Years ahead. Years ahead. You just gave me full body chills with that, because you're right. Hearing someone's story is a gift. It really, really is. And the stories that we're asking for do require some honesty and some bravery to share. Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. So it's been a joy. This last year it's been a learning process. It's had some anxiety, but it also has had a lot of laughter, a lot of love, a lot of joy, and a lot of connection.
Yeah. So hopefully what it's going to remind all of you warrior listeners is that you can do things that you previously thought you weren't able to do.
Yeah.
That you can have imposter syndrome and anxiety and great amounts of worry and discomfort about the unknown, about uncharted waters, and still jump in them anyway, or still take a baby step in them anyway and see how it goes. And that sharing your voice, even if it shakes, can be just the most powerful thing.
And also that you don't have to overthink something before doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you can think a little, you can talk a little, but sometimes you just have to do it to see what happens.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. Are we going to do a 1 question lightning round?
Oh my gosh. I guess we
are. 1 question lightning round. Oh boy.
Wow. I'm feeling under pressure.
See, I'm going to ask a really boring one. It's not going to be a silly one.
Okay.
All right, here we go. I'm going to go first.
Yeah.
What has been the most surprising thing that you've learned about yourself through podcasting?
Oh my gosh. This is such a like deep and profound question. Huh.
Boom. Lightning strikes.
Pressure to sound smart and okay. I guess, I mean, so this is like my gut reaction. And maybe when I re-listen to this during editing, I'll be like, oh, you should have said something better. Right. But I guess the thing that I've learned about myself is it's like a two-parter. It's like, I can do it, whatever it is, editing, connecting, listening, whatever, making a reel with you, whatever it is. And anxiety has a place, but it's often wrong. At least my anxiety, right?
Yeah.
My anxiety likes to say things that are usually don't happen and are usually wrong. And so that I feel like that's my first thought is like, what have I learned about myself? I can do it. I can handle it. And anxiety is often wrong about outcomes and stuff.
Love that.
Thanks.
Sprinkles.
Okay, well, all right. I just feel like I got to ask you the same question.
No.
Oh my gosh.
Lightning round works.
Okay. What is something you appreciate about yourself on the podcasting journey?
Something I appreciate about myself? That's like almost the same question.
Sounds like it's different.
It's different. Okay.
Learning and appreciating are different.
I said surprise. Well, okay. I said something that was a surprise that you learned about yourself.
Oh no. Did I answer it wrong?
Well, you tell me.
I don't know. What is something a surprise?
Something that you were surprised that you learned about yourself, like something brand new that you learned about yourself. I mean, it could be what you said could be, unless you don't think it is.
I mean, I think it's very niche specific. Like I learned this about me in podcasting.
Yeah. So then that works then.
Okay. What is a surprise about you in your appreciation journey of podcasting?
What? I'm sorry. What was that question? Question had too many words. Maybe my brain is just like half fried, but you have to repeat that because I felt like it was like surprise appreciation. I don't know.
It was taking words and putting them together to sound like a sentence.
Oh,
what is something that you appreciate on your podcasting journey about you? And it doesn't have to be a surprise.
Okay. Okay. I appreciate that I've become even stronger at creating boundaries for myself as far as time goes, because I really struggle with like procrastination, adult ADHD, whatever, all the things. So like being able to create a better structure for myself over the past year since we started podcasting, I feel like all of the sort of structure that goes behind what we have to get done every week when it comes to the podcasting, it's been helpful. And this was something that I guess I forgot to say earlier that I was worried about going in. It's like how to handle all the responsibilities of my day-to-day life and my work, my outside of podcasting work.
Yeah.
And then all the podcasting stuff, it's like adding to the plate. And so I worried for a long time about if I'd be able to juggle it all without losing myself or losing my shiitake on students and my family and whatever. And so like, I appreciate that I've been able to create and set and stick to strong boundaries when it comes to my time and energy around all of my responsibilities with the podcast, and also just like being on social media. Like we talked about this in our social media episode, and having boundaries around when my phone goes away at night and when I'm off platforms and whatever, and try not to overthink too hard about like, oh crap, but I need to go back on and check this, or make sure I keep up to date with any new comments or, whatever. all those pressures that I know nobody but me cares about.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
I appreciate the boundary setting that I've created for myself around all things really, but definitely when it comes to the pod.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
And you got a sweatshirt to represent it.
That's right.
Yeah.
I do. From the kind folks over at Self Care is for Everyone.
That's right. I got,
you got your mental health matters. Yeah.
Is my thing.
It does. All right.
I thought about something that surprised me.
Okay.
I am surprised that I don't overthink every single episode. Because
let go a lot.
I had to let go a lot and just, edit it, listen to it a lot, and just put it up into the Anchor platform and let it go. Right. And I think a different version of me might have been super obsessive. Did I say something stupid? Did I say something inconsiderate? Did I, overthinking every bit and piece of it? Did I edit it and it doesn't sound good? And I overthink a little, but not as much. And that has surprised me.
Yeah. I love that.
Woo-hoo.
It's like we've learned to let go of a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
It's like talking about our anxiety every week, talking with guests about their anxiety, moving through this process of the unknown through this podcasting world over the past year has helped us both, I think, to let go of a lot of things that we held on to deeply as like, these are things that we are to our core. And we realize that those are just traits that we can then use our new habits, right? Mm-hmm. Use better habits to, or better practices, I should say, of letting some of that go.
Yeah.
I love that. That makes my heart so happy because it just means that we're growing, right? It means we're growing as people.
Right. And sometimes lightning round doesn't have to be responded to instantly.
That's right.
So we have a very special win of the week.
Yes, it's going to shock you all.
Win of the week.
Win of the week. Our win is simply that we've made it to our 1 year anniversary. Harmonizing in the non-strength category.
Yes. I would. Yes.
Not just because we both have a lag in our Zoom. No. So like whenever I think we're supposed to be able to sing at the same time, we never do.
No.
So our win this week, Warriors, is just that we've hit this incredible milestone. Honestly, it blows our minds. We're so beyond curious and grateful and WTF. And it's like we've come so far. We're excited to see what comes next. And so this is a huge win, hitting this milestone that most podcasts out there do not hit.
Right.
Especially indie podcasts like ours.
Right. I mean, I remember when we were first telling Anthony that we wanted to do a podcast. I forget the numbers and the percentage and all of that, but a very small percentage of podcasts make it past 10 episodes. And then a very small, which sounds crazy because there's so many podcasts out there, right? Yeah. But how many people did 5 and stopped, right? And so I don't know what the percentage is, but out of all of the people making podcasts, a smaller percent make it a year. So that's a huge win.
And I feel like I just read something recently about something called pod fade, which I thought was a really cool way of saying that after, I think it was 7 episodes, most podcasters that are doing it on their own kind of thing without huge media conglomerates behind them and lots of money and backing. After about 7 episodes, their podcast either dies or starts to slowly teeter out. So it's wow, we've done 54 episodes. Oh my gosh. So what is there left to say except
thank you for listening.
Yeah. Thank you for being here. Thank you for shouting out your wins of the week, for sharing topic ideas with us. We want more of those. So if you'd like to reach out with some topics that you'd love to hear us chat about, you can hit us up over via email at anxietywarriorspodcast@gmail.com. Join our Instagram fam at Anxiety Warriors Podcast. And if you think you'd be an awesome fit as a guest, reach out. Let's connect. Let's hear a little bit about your anxiety story, because your anxiety story is important and deserves to be heard. And we would be honored to help you share it here on our show. We have some awesome merch up in our Threadless shop. Check the show notes for the link to that. So many great options and fun designs that you can get on pretty much anything over there. Clothing, mugs, bags, that kind of fun stuff. And if you have 2 seconds or 2 minutes, please smash that 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify or wherever you're listening or tuning into the podcast. If you're on Apple, please drop us a 1-word review. Doesn't even have to be anything crazy. Just love your show, ! Heart emojis. Like that would be great. We'd be thrilled. Just because it helps more people find us, find the pod, find the community. So we can keep growing our warrior family.
It's like an anniversary gift for us.
Yes. Oh, I love that. That would be, oh my gosh, that would be next week's win. If we can get some more ratings and reviews for our 1 year, that would be just the biggest win ever for us, I think. Also, we are on YouTube. So please like and subscribe, follow our show over there. You can listen to all of the episodes if that's your preferred platform. Abby has very awesomely uploaded every previous episode we've ever had, including this one.
So thank you all so much for going on this year-long journey with us. We're so grateful y'all are here.
Till next time.